Good morning, students. Today we are going to revise this lesson, the third level, right? If you have done, it's a revision for you. If you have not done, we are doing for you, right? So, the third level is a curious experience, a very curious experience, and moreover, it is a science fiction. When we'll go through this, you'll find science fiction where there is the protagonist is involved in psychological escape. We human beings are often troubled the way we live. We find ourselves rushing and very mechanically running and running and running and rushing, and that gives us a lot of stress. And when we get that stress, we want to escape out of that. And this becomes very important when you find yourself burdened. So third level is a story or an experience that explores the science fiction. Here the author Jack Finney is, he is the no doubt recipient of World Fantasy Award. He is experiencing a craving for peace, and he is also experiencing that he wants this peace at any cost, right? And he has his own imaginations. In his subconscious mind, he has made a world that escaping where he's going to do. This is the third level. Now let us come to the title of the chapter, the third level. In the lesson, we come to know there was no third level, but according to the author, the narrator, there was third level on Grand Central Station. It was long back in the past. So time travel, traveling into past, disturbance psychologically, emotionally, and we'll be journeying through this fictitious or scientific story or science fiction. With under the canopy of science fiction, we will travel through this, and definitely we will understand, we all experience this craving for peace and tranquility. Yes, Charlie, who is 31-year-old gentleman, was tired. And let me share the screen for you, and this will help us out. Okay. Now, let's read this. And about Charlie, the protagonist, who is facing a curious experience which others find hard to believe. So, have you ever had any curious experience like Charlie which others find hard to believe? The presidents of the New York Central and the New Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only 2 levels. But Charlie says that he has been to the third level. I say there are 3 because I have been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist. The next step he takes is he goes to a psychiatrist. And when he goes to the psychiatrist, his friend says that you really are bewildered. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station, which in reality is not there. But he says, I have been there. He said, I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad. But he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, anxiety, tensions, and whatnot. So please underline this line with a pencil. The world is modern world. What the psychiatrist and friend Sam and Charlie's conversation that took place, he explained him, they came to a conclusion that yes, world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, tensions, and that I just wanted to escape. You can underline these lines, children, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. But that's the reason he said, and my friends all agreed. Everything points to it, they claimed. My stamp collecting, for example, that was a temporary refuge from a reality. We often let ourselves drown into our hobbies. Why? Because after the routine work, hectic schedules, we want to do something different. So he was also fond of collecting stamps. That was a temporary refuge from reality. But this temporary refuge was not sufficient enough to give him that complete relaxation. Yes, he was indulgent stamp collecting, but this hobby of his was not sufficient enough to give him that comfort. And he also felt that his grandfather didn't need all these things. He did not need in the past this refuge that he was feeling for. The modern man, hovering or hovered by fear, insecurity, as we discussed in the lesson, these words, the buzzwords of 21st century also, stress, right? So he felt that his grandfather did not suffer from all these things. Things were pretty and nice and peaceful during those times in his day. From all I hear, and he started my collection. It's a nice collection too. Blocks of practically every US issue is talking about the stamp collection, his hobby of stamp collecting, right? And he's talking of first day covers. The first day covers are generally when a stamp is issued, the people, those who are interested in stamp collecting, they buy that stamp and mail themselves. So it reaches them with the date. So and so on, right? So I'll read the line for you. It's a nice connection to blocks of 4 of practically every US issue, first day covers and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too, you know, and he's justifying his habit of stamp collection. Anyway, now he's coming to the point that anyway, here's what happened at Grand Central Station with me. One night last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment, so I decided to take a subway from Grand Central because it is faster than bus. I wanted to reach home, reach my wife, my family, so I decided to go to Grand Central Station because it is faster than the bus. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, old, right? I'm 31 years old and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. This gabardine is lined texture of the material of the suit that he was wearing. So I passed a dozen men who looked just like me. And I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to come home. And at this moment, I had nothing in my mind that I want to run away from this stress and rushing and monotonous and mechanic life. I just wanted to come home. And what happened to him? He got down some steps and I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level, where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to second level, where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway and got lost into this corridor. And from here, he reaches to third level, which was not there. The question is, how did he reach there? Was he quite fanciful about his imagination? Or his subconscious mind was imagining on the second level as third level what was actually happening? So he's explaining that. That's easy to do. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. Resuming back to his experience, there's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now on its way to Times Square, and maybe another to Central Park. And maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way to escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward. And I thought that was wrong, but I kept walking. I was feeling that somewhere awkward place I'm moving on, not as usual, right? I thought that was wrong, but I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps. Silence, few people or no people at that time. I didn't pass a soul. Then I heard the sort of hollow roar ahead, that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned out sharp left. Dear children, take out your pencil and underline these lines because this is describing that third level, right? Which Charlie thinks it is there and the others don't believe it because it was long back in 19th century there, right? A century back almost. So you can underline with the pencil. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. Just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the rooms were smaller, right? Room was smaller, there were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood, old-fashioned, old-looking. And the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering, old lights, those gas lights, right? And then I saw why they were open flame gas lights. Old type of, there were brass spittoons on the floor to spit for people. So old times, 100-year back time traveling, right? That happens in cartoon networks, which you might have seen and grown, going back into the past, jumping into the future. We have science fictions also where we have written 3157 what will happen. Dear students, many of the things in the science inventions and discoveries, we had never thought of them. Who had known that today we'll be on this threshold, lot of advancement, lot of things. 200 years back, who had thought of internet? 100 years back, who had thought of that we'll be doing those things which no one has ever done in the history? So this way, he has gone back into the past. There were brass spittoons on the floor. Spittoons are, you can say, brass or any other metallic things or vessel-like things which are for spitting on the floors. Like you don't spit on the floor, but you spit into them. And across the station, a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. So old ways, the watches that we used to keep in our pockets, they were not on our wrist during those days. They were in the pockets, the ancient types and old times. Not ancient, but a century back, the cults and the trends that were popular. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch, and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. And the type of mustache that he wore, that he carried, was of handlebar, the turned one. You can see popular cricketers these days keeping those ones, right? Or any other person. So this way he is moving, and you know, the dressing of the person was also, he wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, right? So, and he had big black handlebar mustache. So, you know, part below the collar was designed as it was designed a century back, because the clothes and the way of clothing and all also change in years, decades these days. So they're quite fashionable and quite in vogue. So then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. Then I saw that, oh, I have all of a sudden that people dressing sense has changed. I never saw so many beards, sideburns and fancy mustaches in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate and she wore a dress with a leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high button shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive. Very small Courier and Ives locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack. And then I knew stack means that large, you know, that carry the things. So old type of trains and locomotive. So he was sure. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers. Now I checked his papers, the pile of papers that he was having at his feet. It was the World, and the World hasn't been published for years. Now I saw the name of the newspaper, it was the World, but the World has stopped publishing. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. Now, if he comes to the second level and the first level, he comes to know that this President Cleveland is not the president. He is in 1894, and the date it was printed was June 11, 1894. So I turned toward the ticket window, knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me, his wife and me, anywhere in the United States. We wanted to go in the year 1894, and I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town, still with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead, and the roof, the streets. Now, dear students, he is experiencing himself, finding himself on the third level. He will come out of that, and if he'll say, people will say he's living in some other world. He has gone mad, crazy. There is no third level life. It was long back, 100 years back. He might have read some book, and his subconscious mind, something has settled. This is a story, I said, under the canopy of science fiction. The traveling into past. But what past? What past? Where he wants to? The purpose of going into that past is escaping. A psychological escape from the present to the past, because feeling the past was happy times, peaceful times, grandpa's times, no tensions, no worries. So thinking, obsessed with worries, people often tend to go somewhere. We say it's a lot of monotony now, and I need to go out and spend some days, a fortnight, and then I'll again be refreshed. Enjoy. So this way, this story is a psychological escape. What is third level? What is third level? It did not exist only, but for Charlie, it did exist. Right? I hope, dear students, this much is clear. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. So shall I move further? Shall we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a wonderful town still with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead, and the roof, the streets, and in 1894 summer evenings were twice as long, and the people sat out on the lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around, in a peaceful world. This chapter is talking of peace and tranquility, which was maybe here he is making available for himself. How? Psychologically, right? And to be back there with the First World War. So war was also the anxiety, reason for anxiety of people. The First World War still 20 years off, and World War II over 40 years in the future. So before war situation, I wanted 2 tickets for that. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hat band, but he figured the fare, and I had enough for 2 coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. That ain't money, mister, he said. And if you are trying to skin me, you won't get very far. Now, when he offered the currency, he found that the currency that was being used, right, at that time was not the currency in his pocket. Because he has come from a future, you can say, into the present to past. So the currency differed. It was different. And the man said, that ain't money. That is not the money that I want for these tickets. If you're trying to skin me, you won't get very far. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills, half again as big as money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail even in 1894. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day during lunch hour, I drew $300 out of the bank, nearly all we had, and bought old style currency. Now next day I did what he did. He got the new currency changed into old. And whatever $300 I had, I got all changed into the old style currency. That really worried my psychiatrist friend. My friend was worried. What are you doing? You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. My $300 got less than 200 in old style bills, but I didn't care. Eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894. I wanted to go there. My craving has increased now once I had been there. So next day I did the same. And but I have never again found the corridor that leads to the third level at Grand Central Station, although I've tried often enough. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this and didn't want me to look up for the third level. Why a wife would want that you go to a place which is not there? Something has happened to my husband, and the psychiatrist friend is right. Right? When we talk of mind, dear children, it's a vast topic. Our conscious mind, our unconscious mind, our subconscious mind, right? Many times what we want settles in our subconscious. It comes in dreams, right? It comes in different ways. We long for them. We want those things that we have dreamed, right? So his dream is to get peace. His you can say his craving. We use the word craving. He's longing for that peace, which he's not getting, because his world is full of anxiety, worries, tensions. So, my friend, now let us move to this. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her about all this. And she told me not to go to that level now and find and search and waste money and all. And similarly, my friend suggested, as he was also worried, I went back to my stamps. But now we were both looking every weekend, because now we have proof that the third level is still there, right? So nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected, because Sam's city boy, my friend Sam Wiener, disappeared. Now the psychiatrist friend has disappeared. I'm on the line, the sixth or seventh line from bottom. If you see page number 5, my friend Sam Wiener disappeared. Nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected, because Sam was a city boy, and I used to tell him about Galesburg. I went to school there, and he always said he liked the sound of the place. And that's where he is all right in 1894, because one night, fussing with my stamp collection, I found, how can you say that, as readers, how can we say that Sam has gone there, where he wanted to go? Who was guiding him? The wife and Sam are two characters with whom he's sharing all these experiences, right? And all of a sudden, my friend Sam Wiener disappeared. Where? How? Why? Because one night, fussing with my stamp collection, I found, well, do you know what a first day letter cover is? When a new stamp is issued, stamp collectors buy and use them to mail envelopes to themselves on the very first day of sale, and the postmark proves the date. The envelope is called a first day cover. Now, dear students, please underline what is a first day cover with the pencil in your book, right? And let's move further. They are never opened, and just put blank paper in the envelope. That night, in my stamp collection, I found a first day cover. One shouldn't have, which shouldn't have been there. That night, among my oldest first day covers, I found one that shouldn't have been there. But there it was. It was a letter from Sam, right? It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galesburg. That's what the address on the envelope said. All it had been there since July 1894. So please make a point here. Note down that his friend is in 1894. The postmark showed that, yet I didn't remember it at all. The stamp was a 6-cent dull brown with a picture of President Garfield. Naturally, when the envelope came to Granddad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed there till I took it out and opened it. The paper inside wasn't blank. It read. Now this time the paper in the envelope was not blank. It said the address, if you can see, Galesburg, Illinois, July 18, 1894. I got to wishing that you were right. Then I got to believing you were right. And Charlie, it's true. I found the third level. I have been here for 2 weeks, and right now down the street at the Dailies, someone is playing a piano and they are all out on the front porch singing, seeing Nelly home. And I'm invited over for lemonade. Come on back, Charlie and Louisa. Keep looking till you find the third level. It is worth it. Believe me. The note signed Sam. At the stamp and the coin store I found out that Sam bought $800 worth of old style currency that ought to set him up in a nice little feed and grain business. He always said that what he really wished he could do. He has not gone, but his psychiatrist friend has reached there. Not in Galesburg, Illinois, in 1894, his old business, while Sam was my psychiatrist. Now, dear students, you need to pay attention what is happening in the story. The third level is not there, but Charlie feels that the third level is there, right? So, let me stop sharing. Okay, so the third level is not there, but he has found. Now, the terms and the words that we used in the beginning were that exploration of what? Of the third level, right? The ending of the story, invitation from his friend that the third level is there, right? An illusion, the story is an illusion or time intersection, a kind of long dream that we do not experience when we sleep, but it is there. So this way, the story revolves around the instance where the protagonist Charlie finds himself on the third level at Grand Central Station, which no one will believe. Right? We'll discuss the NCERT questions tomorrow, and this chapter will become wonderfully clear and you'll be able to answer all the questions. Right? God bless you all. If you have any query, you can ask. If you have any query related to this, whatever we discussed, you can ask dear students. Any query? Yes? Any query, beta?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Now when we'll do the question answers, it will become wonderfully, clear and how to write the answers, whether they are short answers or long answers. God bless you all.